Red pill or blue pill? Which would you choose? Today, we're diving into that defining moment from the hit sci-fi film The Matrix and why that decision matters more than you think. Plus, news that inflation continues to ease, Sydney Sweeney jumping the shark with a questionable decision about selling soap, and a letter to adult men that I shouldn't have to write. All that today on The Restless Signal. Welcome to The Restless Signal, where we seek truth, wrestle with meaning, and strive to live well. I'm the voice of the signal, and together we're tuning in. I'm really glad you're here, because today's episode might be one of the most important ones we've done yet. I'll be honest, I didn't set out to make this a heavy episode. I thought it might be a lighter one, something we could have a little fun with, a chance to breathe after some pretty serious episodes and talk about something cultural. But the more I wrestled with the topic, the more I realized it deserved a serious exploration. It's about a question that's been memed to death, oversimplified, and joked about. But at its core, it's one of the deepest human questions we face. Would you take the red pill or the blue pill? You remember the scene from The Matrix. Morpheus offers Neo the choice. The red pill means waking up, seeing the world as it really is, no matter how hard, how ugly, how painful. The blue pill? Stay asleep, stay in the lie, stay comfortable. We all like to think we take the red pill, that we be the hero, that we choose truth over comfort no matter the cost. But is that really true? Just to clarify, this episode, I'm focusing on whether we should want to live in truth. The question of whether we should choose the red pill or the blue pill as a way of orienting our lives. I'm not diving into the deeper metaphysical rabbit hole that later Matrix movies raise, that the real world represented by Zion might itself just be another mechanism of control or even another simulation. Those are huge topics about the nature of knowledge and reality, and they deserve their own conversation another time. Today, we're exploring the fundamental question, truth or lie, and how should we live in light of that choice. I'll be honest, this isn't just a movie scene to me. I've had moments, even seasons, when my faith felt like a cruel joke played by an indifferent universe, when hope seemed impossible, and the call to live for something more felt like an unnecessary burden. I've chosen the blue pill, chosen comfort, distraction, even denial, rather than face the hard truth about myself, about the world, and about what might really be asked of me. I like to think I've always chosen the red pill, but that wouldn't be honest. And maybe that's why this episode matters so much, because I know firsthand how easy it is to reach for the blue one, and how tempting the lie can be. Today, I want to wrestle with that choice, not just as a movie moment, but as a real-world question. Why does the truth matter? Why is the red pill always the right choice? And why do so many of us, again and again, reach for the blue one instead? And I want to look at what the world's deepest thinkers, philosophers, religions, truth seekers across the ages have to say about this choice. Because, spoiler alert, every serious tradition ends up on the same side, even if we'd rather ignore it. So let's go back to the pivotal moment in The Matrix. Neo is living his ordinary life, an office worker by day, hacker by night. He's restless, searching for something he can't quite name. Then Morpheus appears, offering him a choice. The red pill, which means waking up and facing the real world, no matter how harsh, or the blue pill, which means staying comfortably asleep in the fabricated illusion of the Matrix. Neo takes the red pill. He wakes up to a devastating reality, a world ravaged by machines, where humanity is enslaved and living underground. The Matrix itself is revealed to be a computer simulation, a dreamlike state where most of humanity is kept sedated, their bodies harvested as living batteries to power the machines. Neo's new life is filled with hardship and war, but at least it's real. And then there's Cypher. He's a character Neo meets after leaving the Matrix, another who had once chosen to wake up. But Cypher comes to regret that choice. He hates living in squalor, eating slop, in fighting what seems like an unwinnable war against an endless army of machines. Eventually, Cypher makes a deal with the machines to betray his team in exchange for being plugged back into the Matrix, his memories erased, and his illusions restored. Why? Because he can't handle the truth. He wants a juicy steak dinner, even if he knows it's fake. Ignorance is bliss, he says, and that's the blue pill mentality. Since the movie came out, taking the red pill has become a cultural meme, a shorthand for waking up to some hidden truth, often used in political or cultural debates. But I'm not here to talk about the meme. I'm talking about the actual choice, the one Neo made and the one Cypher rejected, and what we should do with it, because that choice, truth or lie, is one we all face every day. We live in a world that's built to make the blue pill easy, the default option. Social media gives us curated lives, highlight reels that let us pretend everything's perfect. News outlets feed us echo chambers so we never have to confront ideas that challenge us. Consumerism promises happiness in the form of the next purchase, the next upgrade, the next dopamine hit. It's easier to stay distracted, to keep scrolling, to keep moving, than to stop and ask, is this real? Is this true? Is this good? I know that temptation. I've reached for it myself. It's so easy to believe that if it feels good, it must be right. And it's not just me. Our culture practically hands us the blue pill on a silver platter. Sure, our institutions, schools, government, even churches, talk a good game about truth, integrity, and seeking the common good. But look around. So many of the people in authority who tell us to live by the truth are themselves caught in lies and corruption. They wear the mask of respectability, but too often they're living for comfort and for themselves, not for truth. And beyond the official voices, listen to the conversations people have online, at the backyard cookout, in the break room. People talk openly about the blue pill like it's the only sane choice. Why would you want to live in a harsh, bleak reality when you could live in comfort? Why would Neo choose a world where he's poor, starving, fighting a hopeless war against unstoppable machines, when he could have a good job in the Matrix, a family, a house in the suburbs, a steak dinner, a vacation once in a while? You'd be crazy to pick that red pill. But that's the question we need to ask. Does that really make us happy? Does it really fulfill us? Is it enough to just be comfortable, to be entertained, to keep the pain at bay as long as possible? Or is there something deeper we're supposed to be living for? That's what I want to explore next. What the world's deepest thinkers have said about truth, lies, and the moral weight of choosing one over the other. Of course, each of these philosophies is deep and complex, deserving hours of exploration on their own. But for the purposes of this discussion, here's how I think they would land on living in truth versus living in lies. Immanuel Kant's philosophy, known as deontological ethics, starts from the idea that there are certain moral duties and principles that bind us, regardless of the consequences. These duties rest on normative values, the conviction that some actions are inherently right or wrong, not just useful or beneficial. Within that framework, Kant argued that truthfulness is a duty we owe to others and to ourselves. A lie, no matter how small, treats the person you're lying to as a means to an end, never as an end in themselves. It erodes trust and undermines the very foundation of human dignity. Think of someone like Edward Snowden. He saw the scale of government surveillance and decided that hiding the truth, living inside the lie, was too high a price to pay. He risked everything to expose what he saw. Now, I know that some people debate his methods, and fair enough, but the core decision to stop living inside a system of lies, that is the red pill moment I'm talking about. The choice to step into reality, no matter the cost, even if it means losing the comfort you had before. Utilitarianism, proposed by philosophers like Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mills, argues for the greatest good for the greatest number. This might seem like it could justify comforting lies, as long as living the lie produces overall good outcomes on the balance. Then it's moral and right. But if we double click and explore the outcomes of lies empirically, even the most practical-minded utilitarian would have to acknowledge that lies, especially big and pervasive ones that orient lives, don't produce good outcomes long term for individuals and entire societies built around them. They eventually crumble and misery is left in its wake. Lies breed suspicion, division, and trust. For example, Theranos, a startup that promised to revolutionize blood testing, claimed it could run hundreds of tests on just a single drop of blood. It drew investors, patients, and even national attention with its vision. But in the end, it was all a lie. The technology never worked. When the truth came out, trust collapsed. Investors lost billions. Patients were misdiagnosed or left untreated. Careers and reputations were ruined, and some went to prison. The short-term happiness of a comforting lie, believing in a quick fix, always leads to long-term pain. Then there's pragmatism. Thinkers like William James and John Dewey. Pragmatists often ask, does it work? Is it useful? At first glance, that might suggest a comforting lie is okay if it helps you get by. But even pragmatists recognize that over time, living on falsehoods undermines both personal integrity and societal trust. A life oriented around illusions might feel easier at first, but it can't hold up when reality inevitably hits. Therefore, it's not even the pragmatic choice to orient your life around falsehoods. Existentialists like Sartre and Camus, even though he rejected that label, felt we lived in an absurd, meaningless universe. Given that situation, authenticity, living honestly, was the way to preserve dignity. Sartre would say, the world might not make sense, but don't lie to yourself. Don't hide behind illusions. Even Viktor Frankl, who endured a Nazi concentration camp, taught that facing suffering with honesty was the only way to live with meaning. Christianity says the truth will set you free. Not comfort, not safety, not an easy life, but truth. Indeed, Christ asks us to pick up our cross and follow him in truth, not in ease or comfort. Other faiths agree. Buddhism calls for right speech, speaking truthfully with compassion. Islam teaches that Allah loves those who are truthful. Hinduism honors truthfulness as a cardinal virtue. Ancient Judaism commands, you shall not bear false witness. Across the board, the message is clear. Living in truth aligns us with a deeper order of things. Then there's nihilism, a philosophy that says life has no inherent meaning, no objective value, and no moral truth. From that standpoint, there's no ultimate reason to prefer truth over lies. If nothing matters, then truth and falsehoods are both just constructs, empty concepts with no real difference. In practice, that can open the door to choosing whatever makes you feel comfortable, since ultimately, it's all meaningless. So basically, given that almost all major philosophical schools of thought and most world religions agree that we should live in truth and reject lies, why do so many of us reach for the blue pill? Because the red pill is heavy, because the truth hurts, because it means admitting we've been wrong, sometimes for years. It means facing pain, our own and the pain we've caused others. It means giving up the false comfort of illusions and facing the real world. I felt that pain. I felt the emptiness of living a half life, where I told myself I was fine, where I convinced myself I didn't need to change, where I put up walls instead of letting people see the real me. And even if no one else noticed, even if I was never called out, I felt it inside. The burden of the lie is always heavier. It's the gnawing anxiety that someone will find you out. It's the loneliness of knowing that no one really knows you because you're hiding behind a mask. It's the shame that builds every time you tell yourself, I'll fix it tomorrow. And that knowledge eats at you, day after day. But let's examine the idea that nothing matters, that truth is just an illusion, and that the blue pill is the rational choice. This is the strange blend of pragmatism and nihilism that so many in the modern West seem to embrace. Maybe not consciously, but in practice. They think, if it works and nothing really matters, then why not do it? And since nothing really matters, then who cares if it's true or not? Now, in strict philosophical terms, nihilism doesn't necessarily say, do what feels good. Classic nihilism says nothing matters at all. Not truth, not lies, not even pleasure. But here's the catch. Most people can't live that way. Total meaninglessness is tolerable. So in practice, people bolt on pragmatism and hedonism, do what works and do what feels good as coping mechanisms. That's why, practically speaking, the blue pill is an embrace of nihilism with a veneer of comfort. Even if you don't call it that, choosing the blue pill means you're living as if nothing matters, except maybe your own temporary happiness. That's why I'm just going to spend so much time in this episode taking down nihilism, because the blue pill is, at its core, the lived out form of that philosophy, even if people don't realize it. It's the idea that truth is optional, that meaning is subjective, and that as long as you're comfortable, you could ignore the hard realities of the world. And that's a lie that comes with a heavy cost. So let's challenge that idea. First, is it even true? Everything we observe in the universe, science, history, human relationships, point to truth being real, whether we like it or not. Gravity doesn't ask for our permission before it pulls us to the ground. Diseases don't care about our feelings. Economic realities, job loss, debt, inflation, don't wait for us to decide whether or not they're convenient. Even our personal relationships are built on trust, and that trust depends upon honesty. When the honesty is shattered, so are the relationships. If you've ever been betrayed, you know that instinctively. We may argue about what the truth is in any given situation, but that argument only makes sense if there is a truth to discover. The very act of disagreeing is itself an acknowledgement that some things are true and some things are false. Reality pushes back, and when we ignore that, we get consequences, sometimes small, sometimes catastrophic. And second, even if you try to live as if truth didn't exist, does that actually work? Is this practical? Let's look at history. The Soviet Union tried to build a society on lies, pretending the state could reshape human nature, rewrite history, silence dissent, and engineer fake realities. It didn't just collapse economically, it left millions dead, families shattered, trust annihilated. Nazi Germany built an empire on lies about race and power, and that lie ended in ruin, genocide, and a shattered continent. North Korea today is a living example of a society built on lies, where everything is propaganda, and the cost is a prison state that crushes the human spirit. And it's not just in those extreme cases. Even in the West, where we pride ourselves on freedom, democracy, and the rule of law, there's a growing tendency to embrace lies at a cultural level. We've seen attempts to redefine fundamental truths, biological truths, moral truths, even the definition of words themselves. Think about the effort to redefine what it means to be a man or a woman, or the claim that it's impossible to be racist against certain groups because we simply redefine what racism means. We try to rewrite the rules of the universe as though our preferences can change reality itself. And what's the result? Confusion, division, and a culture where even the basics of conversation become impossible because words have lost their meaning. Even in less extreme cases, nihilistic thinking leaves individuals isolated, anxious, and adrift. Look at our culture. Depression, anxiety, loneliness, and social distrust are at record highs. Suicide is one of the leading causes of death among people aged 15 to 34. And according to the CDC, the U.S. suicide rate increased by nearly 30% from 2000 to 2020. We're more connected digitally than ever, but more divided and alone in our hearts. People are trying to fill the void with consumption, with shallow pleasures, with curated social media lives that collapse the second something real happens. And this is where I need to be clear about why I'm talking about this. Not as some armchair philosopher looking to score points in a debate club, but because I actually care about living well. That's why the show exists. I'm not here to collect trivia or have thought exercises for the sake of it. I'm here to seek truth and wrestle with meaning, because what we believe shapes how we live. I want my life, and hopefully yours, to be rooted in reality, because truth matters. It's the only foundation that can hold up under pressure. And given that nihilism produces bad results across every metric I care about, from human flourishing to trust, community, and even basic mental health, it fails not just theoretically, but practically. If philosophy is supposed to help us live well, and that's what this show is about, then nihilism fails that test. It doesn't hold up to scrutiny, and it doesn't work. It leaves us with nothing but a hollow shell, a fake stake, a virtual reality that evaporates the moment suffering or challenge breaks through the illusion. If truth is real, and everything we see, from the law of physics to the moral law written on the human heart, points to the fact that it is, then we have to reckon with that. We can't wish it away, no matter how comforting the lie might be. And so, if we care about living well, if we care about living fully with integrity and with purpose, then we have no choice but to build our lives on the foundation of truth. So if truth is real, and if it matters, how do we live in light of that? First, let's be clear about what this show stands for: truth, meaning, and how to live well. It's not enough to know what's true. We have to understand why it matters, how it shapes our sense of purpose, how it fuels the search for meaning, and how it points us towards the kind of life that's worth living. It doesn't mean you broadcast every secret to the world. It doesn't mean you weaponize the truth to hurt others. It means you live in alignment with a reality, no matter how hard it is. So, if you're hiding something, come clean, at least to yourself, and begin the work of repair. If you're living in denial, face the facts and ask, what needs to change? And if you've been telling yourself a comforting story, ask, what's real? What's true? Because here's the thing about comfort. Life has a way of taking it from us. No matter how carefully we build our lives around security and ease, eventually reality breaks in through illness, through loss, through disappointment, and even through death itself. If our lives are built on illusions, they collapse when the comfort is gone. But when our lives are built on truth, on the solid ground of reality itself, we can stand firm even when the world shakes. That kind of life doesn't erase pain. It doesn't guarantee an easy path, but it offers a deeper kind of peace, a sense that even in the hardest times, you're not adrift. You face the world as it is and chosen to build something real. That alignment with truth brings a fulfillment that comfort alone can never give, a strength and a resilience that endures even in the face of the ultimate withdrawal of comfort, our own death. And for some of us, truth isn't just a concept, it's a person. For those of us who believe, truth is woven into the fabric of reality itself, embodied in the one who calls us to live in the light. So, whether you're a person of faith or not, the challenge is the same. Embrace the truth, seek meaning, and live a life that stands the test of time. Because when the storm comes, and it always does, only the truth can hold. So here's my challenge to you today. Choose the red pill. Choose to live in the truth, even when it's hard, even when it costs you something. Maybe especially then. Neo's choice was the right one, even though it led him into a world of hardship and struggle. It was, in fact, the only real choice. Because even in a ruined world, he was living in reality, fighting for something real, building something real, becoming someone real. Cypher, on the other hand, chose comfort, fake steak dinner, and a forgetful dream, and he sold his soul for it. Yeah, it's easy for me to say that from the safety of my home and food in my belly, but also that distance gives me perspective and allows me to make a moral judgment. Cypher's choice was cowardly, shallow, and a betrayal of what it means to be human. Because to be human is to live in the truth, even when it hurts. The blue pill, the lie, looks so tempting. It's easy, comforting, and celebrated by our culture. Most people, including those we're taught to look up to, live like it's the only way. But every serious philosophical tradition, deontology, utilitarianism, pragmatism, existentialism, and the great face reject that path. They all agree a life built on falsehood might feel good for a while, but eventually it collapses under the weight of reality. Yes, nihilism might say the truth and lies are illusions themselves, that nothing matters, so do whatever makes you happy. But look around. Does that produce good outcomes? Does that build trust, community, or purpose? I don't think so. And even if it were theoretically correct, it doesn't align with human experience. And it certainly doesn't help us build a life that means something. Living in truth isn't just the only way to live in accordance with reality, it's the only way to live in accordance with who we are. We're human beings, after all. The very name of our species points to the fact that being in reality, being in truth, is at the core of what we are. And it's also the only practical way to live a life that brings fulfillment that lasts. So let's step into the light together, flawed but determined. Let's be the ones who refuse to trade our integrity for illusions. Let's be the ones who, even when the world says comfort is everything, stand up for something more. Let's be the ones who choose the real, the hard and the raw, because that's where meaning lives, and that's where we become who we were meant to be. Let's stand together and say, I will not live a lie. I will not trade my soul for fleeting comfort. I will not settle for an ease or temporary pleasure built on illusions. I will live in the truth, no matter the cost, because only there can I find courage to rise, strength to endure, and a life worth living. Next up, let's turn to the Bulletin. We've got some interesting stories that are coming over the wire. First up, some encouraging economic news that deserves real attention. According to the latest data, core inflation in the U.S. has fallen to its lowest rate in 4 years. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, a key indicator watched by the Federal Reserve, rose just 2.1% year over year, while core inflation, which excludes the most volatile food and energy categories, slowed to 2.5%. That's the smallest annual increase since September 2021. Economists point to factors like improved supply chains and the stabilization of global energy markets as contributing to this decline. But let's give credit where credit's due. Some of this progress can be traced back to policies set in motion by the Trump administration, policies that prioritized American energy independence, supported domestic manufacturing, and fought to rein in some of the reckless spending that drives inflation. Critics love to blame everything on politics, but facts are facts. Those policy changes are paying dividends now and helping regular families breathe a little easier. Why does this matter? Because for working class and middle class Americans, inflation isn't just a statistic. It's what determines whether the paycheck lasts the month. When prices go up, people have to make hard choices about what to cut. So even a small drop in inflation means real relief, a little less stress, a little more stability. That's why this matters, and that's why we need to stay focused on policies that put the American worker first. Now, let's turn to something that frankly disgusts me. Sydney Sweeney, a wildly talented actress arguably at the top of her game right now, has decided to sell soap made from her own bathwater. That's right, she's teamed up with Dr. Squatch to produce a limited edition soap that actually contains water from her personal bath, packaged and sold for $8 a bar. Some are calling it edgy, some are calling it funny, but I call it what it is, a sign of a culture that's lost its moral compass. Let's start with the basics. First, the men that are lining up to buy this need to do some real soul searching. I don't want to condemn people, and I believe in repentance and redemption, but that only starts with calling the behavior out for what it is. Sick and pathetic. But this isn't just about the men lining up to buy it. Some real shame rests upon Sydney Sweeney herself and the soap producers who acted on this idea and are profiting from it. They're the ones making the choice to degrade themselves and us by turning something as personal and dirty as used bathwater and turning it into a commodity. And for what? Sydney Sweeney is not some struggling actress scraping by. She's a household name. She's successful, beautiful, admired, with all the opportunities in the world right now. She doesn't need this. This is basically a high-gloss OnlyFans stunt. It's objectifying, demeaning, and gross. We used to have some sense of shame about this sort of thing. We used to call it what it was, humiliating, cheap, and beneath the dignity of a society that claims to value human beings as more than just sex objects. But now, it's a marketing ploy. It's supposed to be cute and edgy, and that's a sign that our culture is rotting from the inside out. And here's the bigger point. This is a choice. Sydney Sweeney and the soap manufacturers are choosing to feed a culture that treats people like products. They're choosing to cash in on one of the very worst instincts on the internet. And if we want to reclaim any sense of dignity and decency in our culture, we have to start calling this out. And we can't be worried about the Barbra Streisand effect. We have to say clearly and consistently, enough is enough. Now, let's talk about a natural disaster in Switzerland that arguably had a very different outcome. On May 28th, the alpine village of Bulletin, Switzerland, was buried under millions of cubic meters of ice, mud, and rock after the collapse of the Birch Glacier. Approximately 90% of the village was obliterated. Homes, businesses, entire lives turned upside down. But here's the amazing part, and this is why this is actually a good news story. Thanks to the work of scientists who had been monitoring the glacier for months, and thanks to the local government officials who actually listened to their warnings, every single one of the 300 residents and their livestock were evacuated 10 days before the disaster hit. Only one man is still missing. But let's pause for a second to recognize what happened here. Science and good governance worked together and saved every single life. Why does that matter? Because it's easy to bash government for its failures, and there's plenty to criticize, believe me. But sometimes when government focuses on its core mission of protecting lives and property, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. This is a perfect example of government at its best, funding scientists to monitor the world around us, investing in early warning systems, and taking decisive action to keep people safe. If we had more of that, and less of the nonsense that fills too many government agencies, we'd all be a lot better off. Let's talk about another story featuring NVIDIA's CEO Jensen Huang, and a story that deserves a closer look. Huang is making headlines complaining that export restrictions are preventing NVIDIA from selling its most advanced AI chips to China. His argument? That by restricting sales, we're actually helping China by forcing them to build their own alternatives. He says companies like Huawei are developing chips that might soon rival NVIDIA's best offerings, and that by blocking exports, we're effectively encouraging China's self-sufficiency. But let's take a closer look at that argument. On its face, it sounds suspiciously like, let's just give them everything they want because they'll figure it out anyway. By that logic, why wouldn't we just hand them our nuclear secrets or our nuclear arms too? Why wouldn't we hand over our most sensitive technologies to our biggest political rival? The answer is simple, because it's absurd. And let's not forget whose benefits here. Jensen Huang and NVIDIA. His company stands to make billions by selling to China. His argument just happens to align perfectly with his bottom line. But national security isn't a balance sheet. It's not about making sure Jensen Huang hits his next earnings target. It's protecting the freedoms, opportunities, and prosperity that Americans enjoy every single day. Huang's reasoning also fits nicely into a certain globalist, transhumanist worldview that sees national borders as obsolete, where corporate profits come before national interests, and where America is just another player in the global economy. But that's not how the real world works. America's national security isn't just about business. It's about the lives and the safety of our citizens. Maybe, just maybe, Jensen Huang could put his own country's interest ahead of his billion-dollar deals. That would be refreshing. And finally, let's talk about the latest cultural train wreck from Hollywood. In the new season of And Just Like That, Miranda, yes, that Miranda from Sex and the City, has a sexual encounter with a nun, played by Rosie O'Donnell. It is presented as edgy, subversive, comedic. But let's call it what it is. Cheap, tasteless, bigoted shot at Christianity, specifically Catholicism. They wouldn't dare do this to any other religion, but Christianity, that's open season. Why does that matter? What should we do about it? This is not just some random misstep. It's part of a decades-long trend of normalizing disrespect and outright hostility towards Christianity in mainstream entertainment. And it's not going to stop until we make it stop. Some people say boycotts are wrong, or that's not the Christian thing to do. But let's be honest, this isn't the 1980s anymore. Our culture is a mess, and sitting by quietly, hoping it'll fix itself, is exactly how we ended up here. Look at what happened with Bud Light. Ordinary Americans used their wallets, and it changed the conversation. Liberals have been using that tactic for decades to shape the culture. And guess what? It works. If we want a culture that respects what's sacred, then we need to do the same. We need to boycott. We need to call advertisers. We need to ask the companies behind these shows, do you endorse this garbage? We need to organize, to speak up, to refuse to fund the content that tears down what we hold dear. This is not about violence or anger. It's about using every peaceful, lawful means at our disposal to say, enough. Respect for the sacred doesn't just happen. It has to be demanded, and the time to demand it is now. Okay, that's it for the bulletin. Let's move on into our next letter I shouldn't have to write. This one goes out to a group of people I think will be on my side, but who haven't had the courage to say what we're all really thinking. So, in the spirit of living in truth, no matter the cost, I'm going to say what many of us have been thinking all along and offer a humble proposal to get us out of this mess. So let's get into it. To male adults who still throw birthday parties, look, I love birthdays. I love family. I love you. I even love a good slideshow your wife put together, set to Celine Dion, no less. But we need to talk, because something has gone horribly wrong. Listen, I have 4 kids. My sister has 3. My in-laws have 5. Add in all the spouses, siblings, parents, and honorary relatives whose exact relationship I never fully confirmed, but I'm somehow obligated to honor, and we're talking about a lot of birthdays I'm invited to. And we're not even talking about family friends or my kids' friends' birthday parties. It's legitimately insane. It's like I'm trapped in a Star Trek episode. I stumbled into a temporal rift, and now I'm stuck reliving an endless loop of birthday parties. It's May. I've been to 27 birthday parties this year. 27! That's more parties than weekends. That's a birthday party every 6.7 days. I'm a middle aged man with a full time job, not a Chuck E. Cheese party host. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating the numbers a little bit here, but it feels that many. And it's not just the kids, it's the adults. The 37s, the 42s, the we're doing something low key, just a catered dinner with a specialty cocktail menu and a slideshow on a portable screen. What happened to aging quietly? What happened to dignity? Here's the thing. I work at least 60 hours a week most weeks. I go to my kids' baseball games and performances. I go to church. My family employs me as our home's lawnmower and landscaper. I have to fix things around the house, and for some reason, I decided I had to fit in podcasting into the mix. I live in fear that if I finally get a free weekend, one free weekend to, gasp, do what I want to do for once, it'll be taken by a text that says, don't forget, my sister's sister-in-law's aunt's birthday is on Saturday. It's at the winery. Listen, I'm tired. Emotionally, mentally, physically. I'm so tired my bones hurt. I don't know, maybe something's wrong with me. I know I should enjoy get-togethers with family and friends, and I do. But also, I need a break. I need time to pursue what interests me every now and then. And sometimes I need to do, well, nothing. I just need to be able to sit down for a minute and just be. And I don't think I'm the only one. I look around and I see the same faraway look in the eyes of almost every family man I know. So, I'm proposing a radical solution, a peace accord, if you will. Mutual birthday disarmament. You don't invite me to your birthday, I don't invite you to mine. No parties, no brunches, no cupcakes arranged to spell our ages. Just a silent nod of recognition that we both survived another year and have no time to celebrate it. Look, I know the women won't go for it. They're too strong, too kind, too committed to community. God bless them. They'll keep the world turning. But the men, the dads, the ones who show up to every bouncy house and a backyard taco bar with a folding chair, a diaper bag, and a hollow look in their eyes, we can end this. We can be free. So, slowly now, lower your Evite. Tell your wife to back away from the group text thread with her hands held high. Nobody has to get hurt. Let's both agree to give each other the greatest gift of all, time. Time is the one gift we can't buy back. And right now, I'm feeling a little short on it. Let's honor the truth that sometimes less is more. And a little time to breathe is the best birthday present of all. So this year, let your birthday present to me be the gift of time and freedom. Let it be not inviting me to your birthday party. And I'll give you the same. Easy now. Don't get mushy on me. It's the least I could do. Sincerely, a man clinging to the hope that skipping a birthday party doesn't make him a terrible person. All right, as we wrap up today's show, let's close with our Reasons for Hope segment. Today's Reason for Hope is about dreams coming true. If you can wait 1,000 years and happen to have a $9 billion Hadron Collider. For centuries, alchemists chased a dream that seemed forever out of reach, turning lead into gold. They called it chrysopia, the creation of gold from base metals. It was a quest for wealth, yes, but also for proof that the world's deepest secrets could be unlocked. They failed. But in May 2025, scientists at CERN announced that they had made the dream real. At the world's most powerful particle collider, the LHC, researchers accelerated lead nuclei to near light speed and collided them in near-miss encounters. This triggered a process called electromagnetic dissociation, where the intense electromagnetic field stripped away 3 protons from some lead atoms, atoms with 82 protons, leaving behind gold atoms, which have 79 protons. It wasn't magic or a get-rich-quick scheme. They produced about 86 billion gold nuclei, which sounds like a lot, but in practical terms, it's a mind-boggling small amount, just 29 picograms, less than a trillionth of the weight of a paperclip. Now, creating gold wasn't the goal of the experiment, so why does this give us hope? Because it shows us that the dreams of the past, even the ones that seem absurd, can become reality through human ingenuity and collaboration. It reminds us that no question is too bold, no challenge too great, and no mystery too deep if we dare to pursue it with courage and curiosity. It's not really about the gold, it's about the spirit behind it. The same human spirit that once wondered whether it was possible is the spirit that launched the first rocket, discovered penicillin, and cracked the genetic code. The fact that something so old, a dream so ancient it's practically legend, could be realized in our time is a testament to what we can achieve when we push beyond the boundaries of what we think is possible. This moment is a reminder that the challenges we face today might feel insurmountable, but with that same spirit of curiosity, cooperation, and scientific discovery that turned lead into gold, that made a 1,000-year-old dream come true, we might just find that even our most audacious hopes can come true too. And that's a reason for hope worth celebrating. Well, that's it for today's show. Thanks for tuning in. We'll try to be transmitted again soon. Until next time, seek truth, wrestle with meaning, live well, and above all, keep the signal clear. You've been listening to the Restless Signal podcast, copyright 2025, all rights reserved. Check us out on the web at therestlesssignal.com.